What if the secret to financial freedom isn't hidden in spreadsheets, stock markets, or side hustles, but in the untapped power of your own imagination? In this video, you'll uncover the forgotten formula Neville Goddard used to rewrite reality itself. A formula so precise it doesn't just attract wealth, it magnetizes prosperity, love, and happiness as effortlessly as breathing. And by the end, you'll know exactly how to wield it. This isn't about wishful thinking. It's about a step-by-step blueprint to dissolve financial fear, manifest abundance, and live in the unshakable certainty of your dreams. But only if you dare to see what most never will. This is where it begins, not with a bank account, but with a single radical question. What if everything you've been taught about money is a lie? In this video, you'll witness how Neville Goddard's revelation that imagination is the only reality shatters the illusion of financial struggle, and why mastering this truth is the first step to rewriting your destiny. The formula isn't complex. It's hidden in plain sight, buried beneath layers of doubt, and once you see it, you'll never view money or yourself the same way again. The clock strikes midnight, and there you are, staring at the ceiling, the weight of bills pressing down like an invisible force. But this time, something shifts, because tonight, you ask yourself, what if my mind isn't just a passenger in this story, but the architect? This is the moment the old world cracks open, and the first whisper of truth slips in. Your imagination isn't a playground. It's the workshop where financial freedom is forged. As the realization settles, you recall Neville's words, assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, and suddenly the numbers in your bank account feel less like a sentence and more like a starting point. The formula isn't about chasing money. It's about becoming the person who attracts it without effort. And that transformation starts with a single, deliberate thought. This is how it unfolds, not with a grand gesture, but with the quiet hum of a mind awakening to its own power. Because the first rule of the formula is this: you don't attract what you want, you attract what you believe you already are. The reflection in the mirror doesn't change overnight, but the way you see it does. And as you stand there repeating, "I am wealthy," under your breath, something inside you clicks, like a lock turning in a door you didn't even know was shut. The doubt lingers, but so does the curiosity. What if this works? And that's the spark, the first ember of a fire that will eventually consume every limiting belief you've ever held. The formula isn't magic. It's mathematics. Imagination plus feeling equals manifestation. And tonight, you're doing the math for the first time. Yet something deeper was waiting, and so the question evolves. If my imagination creates my reality, why have I been creating lack? This is where truth breaks through, because the answer isn't out there in the economy or the job market. It's in the stories you've been telling yourself about what you deserve. The formula demands honesty. And as you confront the old scripts, money is hard to come by, I'll never be rich, this is just how life is. You realize they're not truths, they're spells you've been casting against yourself. Neville didn't just teach manifestation. He taught revision, the art of rewriting the past to reshape the future, and suddenly, you see it. Every financial struggle was just a scene in a story you're now empowered to edit. The turning point isn't the money. It's the moment you decide to become the hero of your own life, and that decision changes everything. The air feels different now, charged with possibility, because this is where illusion fades and the real work begins, not in the external world, but in the quiet chambers of your mind. The formula isn't about affirmations scribbled on sticky notes. It's about living from the state of abundance until the outside world has no choice but to reflect it back to you. You close your eyes and imagine the feeling of financial freedom. Not the numbers, but the ease, the security, the joy. And for the first time, it doesn't feel like a fantasy. This is why it matters, because the gap between where you are and where you want to be isn't bridged by action alone, but by the unwavering conviction that it's already yours. The doubt will return, but so will the memory of this moment, the one where you glimpsed the truth. You're not waiting for abundance. You're learning to recognize it. Can you imagine waking up tomorrow and knowing, not hoping, not wishing, but knowing that financial freedom is already yours? This is where the formula sharpens, because Neville Goddard didn't just teach that assumption shapes reality. He he revealed that assuming the feeling of wealth is the fastest way to collapse the gap between lack and abundance. The promise here isn't empty. By the end of this journey, you'll hold the key to a mental state so magnetic that money, opportunities, and even luck begin to orbit around you. But only if you dare to step into the role of someone who already has it all. The rain taps against your window as you sit with a blank notebook, and for the first time you don't write down your debts or your fears. You write, "I am financially free," in bold, unshakable letters. This is where it begins, not with a plan, but with a feeling. Because the formula doesn't respond to words, it responds to the vibration of your conviction. You close your eyes and let the phrase sink in, and something unexpected happens. Your chest loosens, your breath deepens, and for a flickering moment, you believe it. This is how it unfolds. Not through force, but through surrender. As you realize that assumption isn't about pretending, it's about inhabiting the state of abundance until your nervous system no longer knows the difference between imagination and reality. The doubt creeps in. But what about my bills? What about the economy? Yet this is where truth breaks through, because the formula isn't denied by circumstances, it transcends them. Neville's students didn't manifest wealth by ignoring their reality. They did it by reinterpreting it, by holding the feeling of abundance so fiercely that their outer world had no choice but to rearrange itself. You recall his words, "Live in the end," and suddenly, the noise of lack quiets, replaced by a single electric question. What would I do today if I already had everything I desired? The answer doesn't come in words. It comes in a rush of clarity, a knowing that this isn't fantasy, it's the blueprint for your new life. This is the turning point, where the formula stops being theory and starts being experience. Because assumption isn't a one-time act. It's a practice, a daily ritual of aligning your mind with the version of you who already walks in prosperity. You stand up, walk to the mirror, and look yourself in the eyes, whispering, "I don't chase money, I attract it." The reflection doesn't change, but you do, because this is where illusion fades. The old story of struggle was just a costume, and now you're slipping into something far more powerful. The phone rings, and for a second you hesitate, until you remember. Abundance doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It arrives when you're already living as if it's here. The day passes differently now, not because anything external has shifted, but because you have, and this is why it matters. The formula isn't about waiting for proof, it's about becoming the proof. You catch yourself smiling at nothing, and then you realize it's not nothing. It's the quiet hum of certainty, the unshakable sense that the universe is rearranging itself around your new assumption. A text pops up on your phone. An old contact, someone you haven't spoken to in years, asking if you're open to a new opportunity. Coincidence? No. This is how the formula works. Not by changing the world overnight, but by changing you overnight, and letting the world catch up. The real magic isn't in the manifestation. It's in the moment you realize you're no longer begging for abundance. You're commanding it. Picture for a moment the last time you felt true financial fear, the pit in your stomach, the racing thoughts, the desperate mental math as you tried to stretch what little you had. Now what if I told you that fear wasn't a warning, but a glitch, a misfiring of the subconscious mind that, once corrected, could become your greatest ally in attracting wealth? This is where the formula gets personal, because Neville Goddard's teachings aren't just about imagining riches. They're about rewiring the deep-seated beliefs that have been sabotaging your prosperity. And by the end of this revelation, you'll hold the tools to dissolve scarcity at its root. The coffee in your hands feels heavier than usual as you sit in silence, confronting the voice that whispers, "There's never enough." This is where it begins, not with denial, but with awareness. Because the formula doesn't ignore fear, it transmutes it. You close your eyes and let the thought arise fully, watching it like a cloud passing through the sky of your mind. And for the first time, you don't resist it. This is how it unfolds. The subconscious doesn't respond to logic. It responds to repetition and emotion, which means every time you've panicked over money, you've been reinforcing the very scarcity you despise. Neville's genius wasn't in avoiding the darkness. It was in flooding it with light. Replacing "I can't afford this" with "money flows to me effortlessly," not as a lie, but as a new habit of mind. Yet something deeper was waiting. And so you lean into the discomfort, asking the question that changes everything. What if my scarcity isn't a fact, but a story I've been rehearsing for years? This is where truth breaks through, because the formula isn't about slapping a positive sticker over your fears. It's about dismantling them at the source. You grab a pen and list every limiting belief. Rich people are greedy. Money is the root of evil. I don't deserve abundance. And as you stare at the page, you realize these aren't truths. They're inherited scripts, handed down like faded heirlooms, and today you're burning them. The fire isn't in your hands, it's in your mind, where each old belief dissolves into ash, making space for something new. I am a magnet for prosperity. This is the turning point, where the formula stops being an idea and starts being alive in you. Because rewiring isn't a one-time event, it's a daily rebellion against the old self. You stand up, walk to the window, and whisper, "Wealth is my natural state, and the city outside doesn't change, but you do." The doubt lingers. But what if it doesn't work? Yet this is where illusion fades, because the formula isn't about eliminating doubt, it's about outgrowing it. You think of Neville's students, ordinary people who rewired their minds and woke up to inheritances, windfalls, and opportunities they'd never dared to imagine. And you realize they weren't luckier, they were braver. The real work isn't in the affirmations. It's in the moment you choose to trust the process even when the evidence isn't there yet. The day stretches before you, ordinary in every way except one. You're not the same person who woke up yesterday. This is why it matters, because the formula isn't about changing your bank balance. It's about changing the frequency at which you operate. You catch yourself humming as you walk, and then you laugh. You're humming, not because anything has happened, but because something has shifted. An email pings on your phone, a refund you'd forgotten about, a small but unexpected sum, and for a second, you pause. Coincidence? No. This is how the formula whispers to you. Not with grand gestures, but with signs, little confirmations that the universe is listening, that the rewiring has begun, and that abundance isn't a destination, it's the path you're now walking. Suppose you discover that the very act of needing money is the one thing keeping it away. What would you do differently? This is where the formula reveals its most paradoxical truth. Abundance doesn't come to those who grasp for it, but to those who release the fear of its absence. Neville Goddard didn't just teach manifestation. He exposed the hidden law that financial freedom isn't achieved through desperation, but through detachment. And by the end of this revelation, you'll understand how to stop chasing wealth and start magnetizing it effortlessly. The evening air is cool as you sit on your balcony, the weight of unpaid bills still lingering in the back of your mind. But tonight, you don't reach for your phone to check your balance. This is where it begins, not with action, but with surrender. Because the formula doesn't demand you ignore your reality. It asks you to transcend your reaction to it. You take a deep breath and whisper, "I release my fear of lack," and something inside you loosens, as if a knot you didn't even know existed has finally come undone. This is how it unfolds. Detachment isn't about apathy, it's about trust. The unshakable knowing that what's meant for you will find you, not because you forced it, but because you allowed it. A memory surfaces of a time you clung so tightly to a financial opportunity that it slipped through your fingers like sand. And this is where truth breaks through. Neville's wisdom wasn't about working harder, it was about working smarter, not from a place of fear, but from a state of certainty. You recall his words, "You must be willing to give up everything for that which you have assumed is yours." And suddenly, you see it. Your desperation wasn't a sign of commitment, it was a signal of doubt. The formula isn't about convincing the world to give you money, it's about convincing yourself that you're already worthy of it. You close your eyes and imagine the feeling of financial ease, not as a distant dream, but as your current reality. And for the first time, the grip of fear loosens its hold. This is the turning point, where the formula stops being a concept and becomes a lived experience, because detachment isn't about giving up, it's about letting in. You stand up, stretch your arms wide, and declare, "I am open to receive," and the night doesn't answer, but you do, with a quiet confidence that feels like coming home. The doubt lingers. But what if I lose everything? Yet this is where illusion fades, because the formula isn't about eliminating risk. It's about transcending the need to control it. You think of the people who've manifested wealth without struggle, and you realize they didn't need the money, they knew it was coming. The real power isn't in the manifestation, it's in the state of being that makes manifestation inevitable. The next morning you wake up to an unexpected message. A friend offering you a project, no strings attached, just because they thought of you. This is why it matters, because the formula isn't about waiting for miracles. It's about becoming the kind of person miracles find. You smile, not because the opportunity is life-changing, but because it's proof that when you stop chasing, the universe starts delivering. The coffee tastes richer, the air feels lighter, and you realize detachment isn't about losing interest in money, it's about gaining faith in the process. The formula isn't a trick, it's a truth. One that reveals itself when you finally dare to let go. Envision a world where your financial future isn't left to chance, but crafted, word by word, thought by thought, until the life you desire is no longer a dream, but a script you've already written. This is where the formula becomes tangible. Because Neville Goddard didn't just teach visualization, he revealed that scripting, the act of writing your desires as if they've already happened, is the fastest way to bridge the gap between imagination and reality. By the end of this revelation, you'll hold the pen that rewrites your financial story, and the ink won't be hope, it'll be certainty. The desk lamp casts a warm glow over your notebook as you sit down, not to list your debts, but to create your future. This is where it begins, not with numbers, but with narrative, because the formula doesn't respond to spreadsheets, it responds to stories. You take a deep breath and write. It's December 2025, and I'm sitting in my home office, reviewing the year's financial statements with a smile. My investments have doubled, my debts are cleared, and money flows to me in ways I once thought were impossible. The words feel strange at first, like trying on a coat that's slightly too big. But this is how it unfolds. Scripting isn't about lying to yourself. It's about rehearsing the truth until your mind accepts it as fact. A flicker of doubt creeps in. But what if this is just fantasy? Yet this is where truth breaks through, because Neville's students didn't manifest wealth by denying their current reality. They did it by expanding it. You recall his teaching, your imagination is God in action, and suddenly the notebook isn't just paper, it's the blueprint of your new life. The formula isn't about wishing, it's about embodying. So you close your eyes and feel the gratitude of that future moment, the ease, the joy, the unshakable security. And for the first time, it doesn't feel like a stretch. It feels like memory. This is the turning point, where the formula stops being an exercise and starts being evidence of what's coming. You write faster now, detailing the exact amount in your bank account, the opportunities that found you, the way it feels to live without financial fear. The doubt lingers, but how does this actually work? Yet this is where illusion fades, because scripting isn't magic, it's mental programming. Every word you write is a command to your subconscious, and every emotion you attach to it is the fuel that brings it to life. You think of the countless people who've used this method to manifest homes, businesses, and fortunes, and you realize they didn't have a secret. They had a script, one they refused to let reality contradict. You finish the entry, sign it with love and gratitude, and close the notebook with a smile. The room hasn't changed, but you have, because this is why it matters. The formula isn't about waiting for wealth. It's about documenting it before it arrives. As you stand up, you notice a notification on your phone. A message from an old colleague asking if you'd be open to a collaboration. Coincidence? No. This is how the formula responds. Not with fireworks, but with synchronicities. Little nods from the universe that your script is already being read. The real power isn't in the writing. It's in the knowing that every word you put on paper is a step closer to living it. Think of the moment when you last held something you deeply desired, how it felt in your hands, the weight of it, the certainty that it was yours. Now, what if I told you that feeling is the exact frequency that calls wealth into your life? This is where the formula becomes electric, because Neville Goddard didn't just teach visualization as a passive daydream, he revealed it as a technology for rewiring reality. By the end of this revelation, you'll know how to turn mental imagery into a magnet for money, using a method so precise that your subconscious won't just imagine abundance, it will demand it. The room is quiet as you close your eyes, but this time, you're not just thinking about wealth, you're stepping into it. This is where it begins, not with a vague picture, but with sensory immersion. Because the formula doesn't respond to half-hearted fantasies, it responds to lived experience. You imagine the texture of a crisp new bill between your fingers, the sound of your bank notification pinging with an unexpected deposit, the smell of your favorite coffee shop where you now sit without glancing at the price tag. This is how it unfolds. Visualization isn't about seeing, it's about feeling. Because your subconscious can't tell the difference between a vivid imagination and reality, and once it believes you're wealthy, the outside world has no choice but to comply. A flicker of resistance arises. But what if I can't make it feel real? Yet, this is where truth breaks through, because Neville's genius wasn't in avoiding doubt, it was in using it. You recall his instruction: persist in the assumption, and it must become fact. And suddenly, the resistance isn't a block, it's a signal that you're on the verge of a breakthrough. The formula isn't about perfect visualization, it's about persistent focus. So you double down, replaying the scene in your mind like a movie, your hands signing a check, your laughter as you book a dream vacation, the deep ease of knowing all your needs are met. The doubt tries to creep back in, but this time, you meet it with a smile, because you've just glimpsed the future. And it feels inevitable. This is the turning point, where the formula stops being a mental exercise and starts rewriting your nervous system. You open your eyes, and the room looks the same, but you don't, because something has shifted. Your posture is lighter, your breath is deeper, and for the first time, prosperity doesn't feel like a distant goal. It feels like a memory you're recalling. The doubt lingers. But how long until this works? Yet this is where illusion fades, because the formula isn't about time, it's about alignment. You think of Neville's students who manifested fortunes in days, weeks, or months, and you realize the speed wasn't the variable. Their conviction was. You stand up, walk to the mirror, and look into your own eyes, not with hope but with recognition, because the person staring back at you isn't someone waiting for wealth. They're someone who knows it's coming. This is why it matters. The formula isn't about tricking the universe. It's about training your mind to operate from a frequency where money is as natural as breathing. As you turn away, your phone buzzes, a notification from your bank, a small but unexpected refund you'd forgotten about. Coincidence? No. This is how the formula whispers back, not with grand gestures, but with confirmations, little echoes that say, you're on the right path. Keep going. Ask yourself, what happens when you realize that every financial regret, every missed opportunity, and every moment of lack wasn't a life sentence, but a scene you're fully empowered to rewrite? This is where the formula becomes time travel. Because Neville Goddard's revision technique isn't just about changing the past, it's about collapsing the old timeline and stepping into one where prosperity was always yours. By the end of this revelation, you'll hold the key to dissolving financial shame and magnetizing abundance by altering the very foundation of your story. The old checkbook lies open on your desk, its pages filled with transactions that once felt like failures. Late fees, overdrafts, the ghost of choices you wished you'd made differently. This is where it begins. Not with denial, but with sovereignty. Because the formula doesn't ask you to erase your past. It invites you to reinterpret it. You close your eyes and revisit a moment of financial stress. But this time, you don't relive the panic. Instead, you rewrite it. You see yourself calmly covering the expense, feeling the relief of abundance, hearing your own voice say, "Money is always available to me." This is how it unfolds. Revision isn't about lying to yourself. It's about updating the subconscious scripts that have been running on autopilot. And once those scripts change, your future has no choice but to follow. A wave of emotion surfaces. But what if I can't make it feel real? Yet this is where truth breaks through. Because Neville's method wasn't about forcing belief. It was about feeling the new story until it eclipses the old one. You recall his teaching. The past is not fixed, it is fluid and responds to your present assumption. And suddenly, The memory of lack doesn't feel like a scar. It feels like a draft, one you're now editing with the pen of your imagination. The formula isn't about rewriting history. It's about reclaiming your power, so you dive deeper, revising another moment. A job you didn't get, a deal that fell through, but this time you see it unfolding in your favor, feeling the joy of success as if it already happened. The doubt tries to resist, but you meet it with a knowing smile, because you've just glimpsed the truth. Your past was never set in stone. This is the turning point, where the formula stops being a mental exercise and starts reprogramming your identity. You open your eyes, and the checkbook is still there, but its power over you is gone, because you've just proven to yourself that no financial mistake is permanent. The doubt lingers. But how does this actually change my future? Yet this is where illusion fades, because revision isn't about nostalgia, it's about momentum. You think of the people who used this technique to manifest windfalls, promotions, and debt cancellations, and you realize they didn't change the past to escape it. They changed it to launch from it. The formula isn't about living in fantasy. It's about rebuilding your foundation so strongly that abundance becomes your default. You stand up, stretch, and feel a lightness in your chest you haven't felt in years. Because this is why it matters. The revision technique isn't just about money. It's about freedom. The freedom to release shame, to trust yourself, and to step into a future where every financial mistake was just a detour leading you here. As you walk to the window, your phone lights up. A text from a friend. "Hey, remember that idea we talked about last year? I found a way to make it happen. You in?" Coincidence? No. This is how the formula responds. Not by erasing your past, but by redeeming it, turning every old wound into a doorway for something greater. Consider the possibility that financial freedom isn't something you achieve. It's something you embody long before the money arrives. This is where the formula becomes alchemical, because Neville Goddard's teaching of living in the end isn't about pretending. It's about becoming the version of yourself who naturally attracts wealth. And by the end of this revelation, you'll know exactly how to step into that identity so effortlessly that the universe has no choice but to mirror it back to you. The morning sun spills through your window as you wake up, but today you don't reach for your phone to check your balance. This is where it begins, not with numbers, but with identity, because the formula doesn't respond to desperation. It responds to alignment. You stretch, smile, and think, I am the kind of person who wakes up to abundance. And for the first time, it doesn't feel like a lie. It feels like a reminder. This is how it unfolds. Living in the end isn't about ignoring your current reality. It's about outgrowing it. You walk to your closet and pick out an outfit you've been saving for special occasions. But today, every day is the occasion. Because the person who wears this isn't waiting for wealth. They're expecting it. A flicker of doubt arises. But what if I'm just fooling myself? Yet this is where truth breaks through. Because Neville's method wasn't about self-deception. It was about self-creation. You recall his words, you must be the person you want to become. And suddenly, the doubt isn't a roadblock. It's a test. One you pass by, choosing faith over fear. The formula isn't about waiting for proof. It's about being the proof. So you sit down at your desk and write a check to yourself for an amount that makes your pulse quicken. Not as a wish, but as a receipt. You feel the pen in your hand, the weight of the paper, the certainty that this transaction is already complete. The old you would have called this delusional, but the new you knows. This is how fortunes are built. Not by chasing, but by claiming. This is the turning point, where the formula stops being a practice and starts being your default setting. You walk to the kitchen, pour yourself a cup of coffee, and for the first time, you don't calculate how much cream to use. You indulge, because the person who lives in the end doesn't ration joy. They expand into it. The doubt lingers. But how does this actually bring me money? Yet this is where illusion fades, because living in the end isn't about the money. It's about the energy. You think of the people who've used this method to manifest inheritances, business breakthroughs, and unexpected windfalls, and you realize they didn't get lucky. They became lucky by acting, thinking, and feeling as if their desires were already fulfilled. You step outside and the air feels different, not because the world has changed, but because you have. This is why it matters. The formula isn't about manipulating reality, it's about matching it. You're not waiting for financial freedom, you're practicing it. As you walk, you notice a $20 bill on the ground. No one around, just you, and the quiet confirmation that abundance isn't something you pursue. It's something you attract when you're already vibrating at its frequency. You pick it up, not because it's life-changing, but because it's symbolic. A little nod from the universe that says, "You're doing it right. Keep going." Envision a world where every dollar you have, no matter how small, feels like a gift, and every expense is an opportunity to magnetize more. This is where the formula reveals its most transformative secret. Gratitude isn't just a reaction to abundance, it's the fuel that creates it. Neville Goddard didn't just teach manifestation, he showed that thankfulness is the bridge between lack and overflow. And by the end of this revelation, you'll know how to turn appreciation into a currency that multiplies everything it touches. The evening light filters through your curtains as you sit with your wallet in hand, not to count what's missing, but to celebrate what's present. This is where it begins, not with longing, but with acknowledgement, because the formula doesn't respond to desperation, it responds to recognition. You pull out a crumpled bill, hold it between your fingers and whisper, "Thank you for this, thank you for more." At first it feels awkward, like praising a drop of water in the desert, but this is how it unfolds. Gratitude isn't about ignoring what you lack. It's about amplifying what you have. Because the universe doesn't reward complaint, it rewards attention. The more you focus on abundance, even in small forms, the more abundance finds you. A skeptical voice murmurs, "But how does being grateful for pennies attract real wealth?" Yet this is where truth breaks through, because Neville's wisdom wasn't about settling for scraps, it was about training your mind to see prosperity everywhere. You recall his teaching. Gratitude is the open door to more. And suddenly, the bill in your hand isn't just paper, it's proof that money is already flowing to you, and your job is to meet it with joy. The formula isn't about pretending to be rich, it's about feeling rich in the present moment. So you close your eyes and let the gratitude swell, not just for the money, but for the ease of receiving it, the trust that more is coming, the certainty that you're already supported. This is the turning point, where gratitude stops being a polite gesture and starts being a superpower. You stand up, walk to your window, and look out at the street below, but now you're not seeing lack. You're seeing opportunity. The cafe where you'll treat a friend, the store where you'll buy something beautiful just because you can. The knowing that prosperity isn't a destination, it's a state of being. The doubt lingers. But what if I'm just fooling myself? Yet this is where illusion fades, because gratitude isn't about denial, it's about revelation. You think of the people who've used this practice to manifest unexpected checks, promotions, and gifts, and you realize they didn't get lucky. They saw lucky, because gratitude turns every dollar into a seed and every thank you into a command for more. You sit back down, pull out your journal, and write, "I am so grateful for the money I have, the money I'm receiving, and the money that's on its way to me now." The words feel alive, like a spell you're casting over your own life. This is why it matters. The formula isn't about chasing wealth, it's about cultivating the energy that attracts it. As you close the journal, your phone buzzes, a notification from your bank, a deposit you'd forgotten about, a small refund, a sign. Coincidence? No. This is how the universe responds to gratitude, not with grand gestures, but with echoes, little reminders that you're already in the flow. And the more you thank, the more the flow grows. Now consider this. What if the only thing standing between you and financial freedom isn't the economy, your job, or your bank account? It's the invisible scripts running in your subconscious, whispering that you don't deserve abundance. This is where the formula gets raw, because Neville Goddard didn't just teach manifestation, he exposed the hidden blocks that sabotage prosperity, and by the end of this revelation, you'll hold the tools to dismantle them for good. The room is quiet as you sit with a blank sheet of paper, but this time, you're not writing affirmations, you're hunting for the lies you've been telling yourself. This is where it begins, not with hope, but with honesty, because the formula doesn't work when it's built on a foundation of hidden fears. You write at the top, "What do I believe about money that isn't true?" And then you let the pen move without judgment. Rich people are greedy. Money is hard to come by. I'll always struggle. The words sting, but this is how it unfolds. The first step to releasing a block isn't to fight it, it's to see it. The formula isn't about slapping a positive sticker over your doubts, it's about dissolving them at the root. A wave of resistance rises. But what if these beliefs are true? Yet this is where truth breaks through, because Neville's method wasn't about ignoring the blocks. It was about questioning them. You recall his teaching. Your assumptions, though false, will harden into fact if you persist in them. And suddenly, the beliefs on the page don't feel like truths. They feel like choices, ones you're no longer willing to make. The formula isn't about pretending the blocks don't exist. It's about replacing them. So you flip the page and write the opposite. Money flows to me easily. I deserve abundance. Wealth is my natural state. The doubt lingers, but you meet it with a smile. Because you've just taken the first step toward rewiring your mind for prosperity. This is the turning point where the formula stops being a mental exercise and starts being a revolution. You stand up, walk to the mirror, and look yourself in the eyes, not with criticism, but with compassion. Because the person staring back at you isn't broken, they've just been misinformed. The doubt whispers, "But how do I know this will work?" Yet this is where illusion fades, because the formula isn't about certainty, it's about commitment. You think of the people who've used this process to break free from financial struggle, and you realize they didn't have fewer blocks, they just refused to let them define them. The real power isn't in the absence of fear. It's in the courage to move forward anyway. You crumple the old beliefs into a ball and toss them into the trash, not as a symbolic gesture, but as a declaration. This is why it matters. The formula isn't about changing your circumstances, it's about changing the frequency at which you operate. As you sit back down, your phone buzzes, a message from a client you hadn't heard from in months. "I have a project I'd love your help with. Are you available?" Coincidence? No. This is how the universe responds when you clear the blocks. Not with fireworks, but with opportunities, little confirmations that the path is open, and the only thing left to do is walk it. Picture for a moment a river, endless, flowing, always moving. And imagine that money is just like that, not a finite resource to hoard, but an energy to align with. This is where the formula becomes sacred, because Neville Goddard didn't just teach how to attract wealth. He revealed that money is a spiritual force, and your relationship with it is a reflection of your relationship with yourself. By the end of this revelation, you'll see money not as a stressor, but as a mirror. One that shows you exactly where you're aligned with abundance and where you're still resisting it. The candle on your desk flickers as you hold a coin in your palm, but this time you're not counting its value, you're feeling its energy. This is where it begins. Not with logic, but with awareness, because the formula doesn't respond to spreadsheets, it responds to vibration. You close your eyes and ask yourself, if money is energy, what frequency am I emitting when I think about it? The answer comes not in words, but in a sensation, a tightness in your chest, a flicker of anxiety, the old habit of seeing money as scarce. This is how it unfolds. Wealth isn't something you get, it's something you match. The formula isn't about chasing dollars. It's about raising your energy until money becomes as natural as breathing. A voice of skepticism murmurs, "But money is just paper and numbers. How can it be spiritual?" Yet this is where truth breaks through, because Neville's wisdom wasn't about denying the physical world. It was about seeing beyond it. You recall his teaching, your consciousness is the only reality, and suddenly, the coin in your hand isn't just metal. It's a symbol of trust, of flow, of the universe's ability to provide. The formula isn't about manifesting money, it's about embodying the energy of abundance. So you take a deep breath and whisper, "I am a magnet for prosperity." Not as a plea, but as a declaration. The doubt lingers, but you meet it with a knowing smile because you've just glimpsed the truth. Money isn't the goal, it's the feedback, a reflection of how aligned you are with your own power. This is the turning point where the formula stops being a technique and starts being a way of life. You stand up, walk to the window, and watch the world outside. Not as a place of lack, but as a field of energy, where every transaction, every opportunity, Every dollar is just flow in motion. The doubt whispers, but how do I stay in this energy when bills are due? Yet this is where illusion fades, because the formula isn't about ignoring responsibilities. It's about meeting them from a place of trust. You think of the people who've shifted their relationship with money and watched as opportunities, refunds, and unexpected income appeared effortlessly, and you realize they didn't change money. They changed themselves, and money had no choice but to follow. You pick up the coin again, but this time you don't see its value. You see its message. You are the source. I am the flow. This is why it matters. The formula isn't about controlling money. It's about harmonizing with it. As you place the coin back on the desk, your phone chimes, a notification from your bank, a deposit you'd forgotten about. A small but timely reminder that abundance isn't something you pursue. It's something you allow. Coincidence? No. This is how the universe speaks when you finally start listening, not with words, but with energy. And the more you align with it, the more it aligns with you. Suppose you discover that every financial struggle you've ever faced wasn't a reality, but a mirror, reflecting not the world's limitations, but your own unexamined beliefs about what's possible. This is where the formula becomes liberating, because Neville Goddard didn't just teach how to manifest wealth. He exposed lack as the ultimate illusion. A story we've been sold, but never had to believe. By the end of this revelation, you'll see scarcity not as a truth, but as a trance, one you're fully empowered to wake up from. The room feels different as you sit in silence, not to meditate on your bills, but to question the very idea that money is ever truly scarce. This is where it begins, not with acceptance, but with inquiry, because the formula doesn't respond to resignation, it responds to awakening. You ask yourself, what if lack isn't a condition, but a perspective? The question hangs in the air, and for the first time, the weight of financial stress feels less like a burden and more like a puzzle, one you're finally ready to solve. This is how it unfolds. The illusion of lack isn't shattered by money, it's shattered by awareness. The formula isn't about working harder to escape scarcity, it's about seeing through it until it dissolves like mist in the sun. A familiar voice of doubt whispers, but what if there really isn't enough? Yet this is where truth breaks through, because Neville's teachings weren't about ignoring reality, they were about redefining it. You recall his words, "The world is a mirror, forever reflecting what you are doing in your consciousness." And suddenly, the lack you've feared isn't a fact. It's a feedback loop, one you've been unknowingly fueling with your own focus on limitation. The formula isn't about manifesting more money. It's about unlearning the belief that money is ever truly missing. You close your eyes and imagine a world where abundance is the default, where every no is just a redirection, and every not yet is a promise. And for the first time, that world feels closer than the old story of struggle. This is the turning point, where the formula stops being a mental exercise and starts being a revolution in perception. You stand up, walk to your bookshelf, and pull out an old journal, flipping to the pages where you've scribbled worries about money. But this time, you don't read them with fear. You read them with curiosity, because those words aren't prophecies. They're scripts you're no longer willing to perform. The doubt lingers. But how do I trust this when my bank account says otherwise? Yet this is where illusion fades, because the formula isn't about denying your current balance. It's about expanding your vision beyond it. You think of the people who've used Neville's teachings to turn debt into surplus, struggle into ease, and lack into overflow, and you realize they didn't change their circumstances. They changed their mind, and their circumstances had no choice but to follow. You tear out the pages of old fears and set them aside, not to destroy them, but to transcend them. This is why it matters. The formula isn't about pretending lack doesn't exist. It's about seeing it for what it is, a temporary illusion, a story you're now rewriting. As you sit back down, your phone lights up with a message from a friend. "I just got a bonus, and I want to take you out to celebrate. My treat." Coincidence? No. This is how the universe responds when you finally stop believing in lack. Not with a single windfall, but with a shift in the fabric of your reality, where abundance starts to appear in ways you never even had to ask for. Can you imagine reading the stories of ordinary people, just like you, who turned Neville Goddard's principles into real wealth, not through luck or privilege, but by mastering the art of conscious creation? This is where the formula becomes undeniable, because these aren't just theories, they're proof, living examples of how assumption, revision, and detachment can collapse financial struggle into abundance. By the end of this revelation, you'll see that the path to prosperity isn't a mystery, it's a repeatable process, and the only variable is whether you're ready to apply it. The first story unfolds in a tiny apartment in Chicago, where a single mother named Lisa sat with $23 in her bank account and a stack of unpaid bills. This is where it begins, not with a miracle, but with a decision. Lisa had read Neville's words, "Assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled," and that night, she didn't just hope for money, she felt it. She wrote herself a check for $5,000, signed it the universe, and tucked it under her pillow. This is how it unfolds. Within 3 days, she received a call from an old employer offering her a freelance project, exactly $5,000. The formula wasn't about the check. It was about the shift. The moment Lisa stopped begging for help and started commanding it. Then there's James, a struggling artist in New York who had convinced himself that starving was part of his identity. This is where truth breaks through, because James didn't change his circumstances by working harder. He changed them by revising his past. Every night, he'd close his eyes and rewrite the moments he'd felt rejected, imagining galleries begging for his work, collectors eager to pay. This is the turning point. Within weeks, a gallery he'd been rejected by twice called him back, offering not just a show, but a 6-figure commission. The formula wasn't about talent, it was about perspective. The moment James stopped seeing himself as a victim of lack and started seeing himself as a magnet for abundance. And what about Sarah, the corporate employee who was one layoff away from ruin? This is where illusion fades, because Sarah didn't manifest a new job by sending out resumes. She did it by living in the end. She'd wake up, dress for the role she wanted, and feel the security of her dream salary before a single interview. This is why it matters. Within 2 weeks, she was headhunted for a position paying double her old salary. The formula wasn't about the job, it was about the identity. The moment Sarah stopped waiting for opportunity and started embodying it. The common thread? None of them chased money. They became the kind of people money finds. This is the real power. The formula isn't about luck, it's about alignment. And as you sit there reading these stories, your phone buzzes, a notification from your bank, a refund, a bonus, a sign. Coincidence? No. This is how the universe responds when you finally get it. The proof isn't in the stories. It's in the shift, the moment you realize that if they can do it, you can too. Envision the moment when the weight of debt no longer feels like a chain around your neck, but like a lesson, one that taught you how to harness the power of your mind to rewrite your financial story. This is where the formula becomes your lifeline, because Neville Goddard didn't just teach manifestation. He provided a roadmap for dissolving debt by shifting your consciousness. By the end of this revelation, you'll hold a step-by-step blueprint to transform lack into overflow, not by struggling, but by reimagining your relationship with money. The first step begins with a single, radical act, acknowledging the debt without fear. This is where it starts, not with denial, but with awareness, because the formula doesn't respond to panic, it responds to presence. You sit at your desk, pull out your statements, and instead of spiraling into shame, you whisper, "This is temporary, my abundance is permanent." This is how it unfolds. Debt isn't your enemy, it's a mirror, reflecting old beliefs about scarcity. The formula isn't about paying it off through sheer willpower. It's about dissolving the mental blocks that created it in the first place. The doubt creeps in. But how can thinking differently erase real debt? Yet this is where truth breaks through, because Neville's method wasn't about ignoring reality, it was about transcending it. You recall his teaching, your world is a reflection of your inner conversations, and suddenly, the debt isn't a life sentence. It's a story, one you're now rewriting. The formula demands action, but not the kind you're used to. Instead of scrambling for side hustles, you close your eyes and revise the past. You imagine opening your bank app and seeing a zero balance, feeling the relief wash over you, hearing your own voice say, "I am free." The doubt lingers, but you meet it with a smile, because you've just glimpsed the future. and it feels inevitable. This is the turning point, where the formula stops being a mental exercise and starts being your daily practice. You stand up, walk to your vision board, and pin a new statement: my debts are paid in full, and money flows to me effortlessly. The doubt whispers, but what if it doesn't work? Yet this is where illusion fades, because the formula isn't about instant results. It's about consistent alignment. You think of the people who've used this process to manifest debt cancellations, unexpected windfalls, and opportunities that erase their balances overnight, and you realize they didn't escape debt. They outgrew the mindset that created it. You sit back down, take a deep breath, and feel the freedom as if it's already here. This is why it matters. The formula isn't about the money, it's about the shift. The moment you stop seeing yourself as a victim of debt and start seeing yourself as its conqueror. As you stand up, your phone buzzes, a notification from your bank, a payment you'd forgotten about, a refund, a sign. Coincidence? No. This is how the universe responds when you finally claim your power, not with a single miracle, but with a series of confirmations that the path is working, and the only thing left to do is keep walking it. Think of the moment when money stops being something you chase and starts being something you attract, effortlessly, consistently, like a river flowing to the sea. This is where the formula becomes automatic, because Neville Goddard didn't just teach how to manifest one-time windfalls. He revealed how to engineer a life where wealth comes to you on repeat. By the end of this revelation, you'll understand how to turn your imagination into a passive income machine, where opportunities, ideas, and resources find you, not because you're lucky, but because you've aligned with the frequency of inevitable abundance. It starts with a question you've never dared to ask. What if money could come to me while I sleep? This is where it begins, not with hustle, but with vision, because the formula doesn't respond to exhaustion, it responds to expectation. You sit in your favorite chair, close your eyes, and imagine waking up to notifications of sales, deposits, and opportunities you didn't have to beg for. This is how it unfolds. Passive income isn't about luck. It's about leveraging the power of your mind to create systems that work for you, not because of you. The formula isn't about working harder. It's about vibrating at the level where money is drawn to you like a magnet. The doubt creeps in. But passive income takes time, connections, resources I don't have. Yet this is where truth breaks through. Because Neville's teachings weren't about waiting for the perfect conditions. They were about assuming the perfect conditions already exist. You recall his words. Your imagination is the workshop of your future. And suddenly, the lack of resources isn't a roadblock. It's an invitation to start where you are with what you have and imagine the rest into existence. The formula demands clarity, so you grab a notebook and write. I now attract passive income streams that align with my skills and joy, not as a wish, but as a command to the universe. The doubt lingers, but you meet it with a knowing grin because you've just planted a seed. And seeds don't argue with the soil, they grow. This is the turning point, where the formula stops being a dream and starts being your daily reality. You stand up, walk to your workspace, and ask yourself, what's one thing I can create, offer, or invest in today that could generate income while I sleep? The answer doesn't come from logic, it comes from inspiration. A nudge, an idea, a feeling of excitement. The doubt whispers, but what if it fails? Yet this is where illusion fades, because the formula isn't about guarantees, it's about momentum. You think of the people who've used this process to launch courses, write books, invest in assets, and wake up to money they didn't trade time for, and you realize they didn't wait for permission. They gave themselves permission by assuming the role of someone who already lives in overflow. You open your laptop, not to scroll mindlessly, but to take action. A small step, a single post, a bold pitch. This is why it matters. The formula isn't about the outcome, it's about the energy. The unshakable knowing that you're not just creating income streams, you're creating a new identity. As you hit send on an email or publish a piece of content, your phone pings. A notification from an old client, I've been thinking about your idea, let's make it happen. Coincidence? No, this is how the universe responds when you finally align with the frequency of passive abundance, not with a single payday, but with a system that keeps giving long after the work is done. Picture for a moment the quiet hum of your own breath, the stillness between thoughts, the space where everything is already decided, where wealth isn't something you chase, but something you allow to find you. This is where the formula becomes effortless, because Neville Goddard didn't just teach visualization or affirmations. He revealed that silence is the most powerful manifestation tool of all. By the end of this revelation, you'll understand how to use meditation not just to calm your mind, but to magnetize money by aligning with the frequency of abundance in the space where all creation begins. The morning light filters through your curtains as you sit cross-legged on the floor. But this time, you're not meditating to escape your thoughts. You're meditating to reshape them. This is where it begins, not with effort, but with surrender, because the formula doesn't respond to noise, it responds to clarity. You take a deep breath, close your eyes, and let the chatter of lack and limitation dissolve into the quiet. This is how it unfolds. In the silence, you're not asking for wealth, you're remembering it. Because abundance isn't something you get, it's something you are, and the stillness is where you reclaim that truth. The doubt whispers, "But how can sitting in silence possibly attract money?" Yet this is where truth breaks through, because Neville's wisdom wasn't about filling your mind with more thoughts. It was about emptying it of the ones that don't serve you. You recall his teaching. In the silence, you are most receptive to the impressions of your desire. And suddenly, the quiet isn't empty. It's alive, with possibilities, with the knowing that your financial freedom is already here, waiting for you to meet it. The formula isn't about forcing manifestation, it's about allowing it, so you let go of the need to figure it all out and simply feel the state of having it all. The doubt lingers, but you don't fight it. You observe it, like a cloud passing through the sky of your mind, and you return to the silence where the real work is done. This is the turning point, where the formula stops being a practice and starts being your natural state. You feel a warmth in your chest, a quiet certainty that doesn't need proof, because the silence has already shown you, you are the source. The doubt tries to pull you back. But what if nothing changes? Yet this is where illusion fades, because the formula isn't about instant results. It's about deep alignment. You think of the people who've used this process to manifest opportunities, refunds, and unexpected income after just a few days of stillness, and you realize they didn't do anything differently. They were different, because in the silence, they became the kind of people money finds without effort. You open your eyes, and the room feels lighter, not because anything has changed, but because you have. This is why it matters. The formula isn't about the meditation, it's about the shift. The moment you stop begging the universe for abundance and start recognizing that you're already in its flow. As you stand up, your phone buzzes, a message from a friend. "I just got a bonus, and I want to treat you to lunch." No strings, just gratitude. Coincidence? No. This is how the universe speaks in the silence, not with fanfare, but with synchronicities, little whispers that say, "You're on the right path, keep going." Envision the moment when the words you speak about money stop being hopeful whispers and start being commands, not to the universe, but to your own subconscious, rewiring it to see wealth as your natural state. This is where the formula becomes verbal alchemy, because Neville Goddard didn't just teach visualization. He showed how the right affirmations, spoken with feeling, can dissolve financial struggle and summon abundance like a magnet. By the end of this revelation, you'll hold the exact phrases to program your mind for prosperity, and the secret to making them work every time. The mirror reflects your face as you stand before it, but this time, you're not checking your appearance, you're rehearsing your future. This is where it begins, not with hesitation, but with conviction, because the formula doesn't respond to half-hearted words. It responds to belief. You look into your own eyes and say, "Money flows to me effortlessly and endlessly." And at first, the words feel foreign, like a language you're learning. But this is how it unfolds. Affirmations aren't about repeating empty phrases. They're about embodying them until your subconscious accepts them as truth. The formula demands emotion, so you don't just say the words, you feel them, letting the certainty of abundance wash over you like a wave. The doubt creeps in. But what if I don't believe it yet? Yet this is where truth breaks through. Because Neville's method wasn't about waiting for belief. It was about acting as if the belief was already there.